like to show you how I laid out my palette. Not necessarily in a particular order, but it's only the primary colors, yellow, red, and blue. I have violet here because I happen to have it anyway, and it lends a little bit of character to the reflections from the sky, which I'll bring out a little bit later on. I had scooped this blue off of my other palette so I could use it, but I had gotten it a little bit dirty. So to keep my ultramarine more pure, I had to mix it over here from a new sample of ultramarine. So you can see where I'm going right here between white and ultramarine, several shades. Then I needed brown for the rocks and a tree. And so I started mixing again using the darker color of blue in here that doesn't fit anything. And I put it in here. And I came up with this color of a brown. So until you put white in there, you really don't know what color you have. So I put white in here and actually had a gray. But I can use that gray. So the next step I did is I come over here and pull this out over to the side and added a little bit of white, more yellow, and more red, so we can turn it into more of a brown color, not a gray. And for anyone that's not used to mixing their own colors, this is, I wanted to show you. Now you look at it and say, is it too red or too yellow? Because it'll go back and forth until you get it right. Of course you see too much red, so we'll add a little more yellow. And if this doesn't get it, then we'll add something else. But that looks a lot better. I'm going to pull some over here and pick up some white and show you the difference in these colors. The only difference in these colors is that this has a lot more blue in it. To counteract that and turn it to a browner color, I put the yellow and the red in there, so you have all three colors, yellow, red, and blue, that makes brown. The darker you want it, the blacker you want these colors, you put more blue and more red in there, because that's the only two dark colors you have on the palette. The only light colors you have are yellow and white. So if you want a dark black or charcoal, you'll have to stay mainly within the darker colors. So now I have my colors mixed up, and we're going to paint. A little 101 on primary colors. I believe it's so important to go back to your basics. Sometimes we paint, we might get into something abstract or something really different, and we are not necessarily using what we've learned in, earlier lessons on painting still life and portraits and things like that. So everything, though, comes full circle. Everything is a basic color. It's either round, square, cone shape, cylinder shape, octagon shape, or whatever. Since I have some brown mixed up here, this may not be the right color brown. I think it's a little bit too pink. I'm going to kind of accent the corners. It's not light enough and it's too pink. Okay, so I'll slide some of that over and add some more yellow and red and some more white, because I want to do a little more work on the rocks right now. And then I'm going to start growing a tree. It's amazing in art, you can just grow a tree right before your eyes. Now I've come to a pink color, so I'm having to get more yellow. There's no absolute formula for how much of what. Sometimes I'll say put equal amount of this and that together, and it'll be perfect. Sometimes it doesn't turn out that easily. Your eye will tell you what you need. So observe, don't get stuck with your own original ideas. See what the painting needs. The painting does not need that gray color. You need something in a little bit lighter color and a little bit towards the golden, even though it doesn't have to be the color of the side. It's not necessary. And matter of fact, each rock is going to be a little bit different color because they're not made of the same substance. They're the same type of rock. And some of these will be reflected colors from things that are around them. Now I want to put kind of a ledge on this to raise up the front of the rock here and let it go back and slant down towards the back. We want that to appear that it's kind of going back and slanting down. So we're going to just kind of move the color around a little bit, and you will notice that that will begin to happen. I'm going to put kind of a definite edge right in here. And it doesn't matter if it's straight or not. Rocks are not made in a certain way. Later, I'll put details in here, like some grass or something else, that will make that rock more interesting, but we have to build it first. Now, right in here where it goes down, the sun is not hitting it that strongly. The light is not hitting it strongly, so it will be only lighter in places and a lot more interesting maybe. To do it this way, you just kind of add highlights here and there, move them around. Now, show what's really interesting right in here. I think we need to kind of drop this whole thing down as if it is shaped in a form of an edge that didn't form right in here. That's not water, that's the rock. So let's put this in here like it's the rock. We don't want it to look like it's water running over this. Let that run into the this part of the rock, be a different shape. Like I said before, rocks are individuals. So each one is just a little bit different, and one is just as important as the other. Now, to have the highlights, to have the reflection in the water, we'll bring this color down. And then we'll put a line in to establish where that rock came to along here. And just kind of smooth it up. Let it go down to the water line. And that's about what it's done. We'll look at that later. I like it, except it looks too much like a shell, like a square object. So I think right over here we're going to change this a little bit and bring it on down and bring it over. What catches your eye, it may be a rock, it may be a flower in the wild, out in the wild that you notice. So this may be something that will be noticed. As something to say, well, that's really pretty there. Look at that reflection. So we'll spend much time, just a little bit of time on it to make it as pretty as we can. And there's another water up. So the rock is coming down here, and we're going to put us a little bit more, less of a corner here, and I'm going to blend this together so they'll be kind of rounded off. So right now this is not a sharp edge, it is a rounded off area on this rock from here to here. It is a sharp angle here, like a shelf. But in this area, the way this rock eroded, it came out in that direction. Previously, I had put another rock behind that, but right now I'm just going to combine those two because they could be like a large boulder, or you could stand there and go fishing, or an animal could go out there and get a drink of water. So we're going to combine these colors and shapes into this area and let that be part of the same rock. That makes a whole lot more sense. See how you can change your mind and come up with something if you just approach art with an open mind. That's a part of this one big boulder. And we have just grown a rock. Let's let the light hit the back of this just a little bit right in here so we can see the edge. A little bit of gold will be showing through that rock because that's kind of like a reflected color from all of the color that's around it. I think it's time to make up our mind how this water is going to go behind that rock. It just flows into the bank, hits the bank and bounces back and rolls back into the waterway. And use this watercolor to make more definition of where the rock is. So that's behind the rock. And at a later point I'll come back. I think I'll just smudge it right here. It's good to have some disappearing lines so it's not so permanent. This shape in here is not very pretty. So we're just going to kind of get real loose in here and move the water around. Right in here looks almost like a white cap where the water's kicked up and pushed the water around the little corner inlet right here. And we can use some white, but nothing's all one color in nature. It has lights and darks, so we can add a little white cap to this where that's foamed around there. Motion of the waters cause it to make a little white cap. It's a good time to get off the boat, get out of the water. I think a little storm's brewing in the background. I'm going to do a little bit more right here. Then I'm going to start a tree shape. On this left side. It looks like we have too much dark in here. As I said, these colors get darker as they dry. So I'm going to add some more pleasant colors of blue. Tone it down a little bit. Not too light, but we don't need it that dark. It'd be pretty if we kind of smooth that out a little bit. So I'm just picking up some different shade of ultramarine and blue that I mixed up. It's very good to have your colors mixed up before you start. Even though you're anxious to get started on your canvas, take time to play in your colors. And that's what I try to do. Of course, I will admit sometimes I'm just ready to jump in and paint. And that's what I do, and then I have to stop everything and mix my paint and start again. You lose your rhythm and maybe your ideas of what you had that you wanted to do. Just lightening up this very dark blues in here. And before I'm through this painting, I'll look at it again and see about the water and see if it's doing what I want it to do. And we can always add a little more color. We can always go over something, smooth it out like that. Or too many waves, we can smooth that with a palette knife. But I'm going to show how this water is rushing in here around this rock in this fashion and headed this way. It's kind of looked like it's hit a rock that's underneath the water there. Kicked it up a little bit. You can compare this picture today when I get through to the water that I did yesterday or the day before. Last time I painted in here. What happens, I'll get 2 or 3 paintings started so that when I get bored with one, I can paint on another. That's what's happened this week. I had to leave this one alone and think about it for a while. I've invested quite a bit of time on this one, and I want it to turn out very pretty. Of course, that's our intentions with all of our paintings, is to be successful. To be pretty. This is the first palette knife painting I've done in years. I've always liked to do this, but I've made myself go into other styles of art, different methods, just to educate myself on what's going on. Since I've been painting for so many years, things have changed, just like everything else. Other things become popular, and the things that were popular become not so important anymore. So back when I was painting in the 80s, an old farmhouse, scenery, flowers, and a still life was basically what was so popular. And maybe the old home place, people like to have pictures painted of those. And I've done several. But we have a young generation coming up. Their furniture in their apartments and their homes going to be more modern. They're not going to be from the 50s and 60s. So they're looking for something just a little different. And even some of us seniors are liking the new art, the new abstracts. Over here we do see a lot of action with the waves. That's because it can push in from around here and head towards that bank. And when it does, it will make a few splashes over here. Then it'll run back where it came from. Let's make a nice clean line of this wave here. It's crashing in here. Get it a little better. Let it join that one. Maybe come this way. Okay. Just about through correcting this dark blue. It's bothering me, so that we can want to go in there and grow a tree. Because I'm going to put a wild animal in here, and I've decided it's going to be a bobcat. Wild bobcat. And I have a painting of one that I did several years ago that I have not found a better one. So that's what I'm going to use. He can be perched on a rock or up in the tree. So that's what I'll have to decide. Along the way is exactly what we're going to do with him, but I'm also going to put another bobtail cat into another painting, a large mural that I'm doing. If I find a picture of a wild animal that would fit this better, I think having a bear out there would be great, but in the place where we live, in Northeast Texas, they're not seen so much. I want to have something more local in this painting. Too much dark blue. We don't need that. We don't need an angry dark painting. Use that for shadows. But we can tone it down. Okay, one more little wave in this corner, splashing up in this little rock. A little splashing in here. Splatters onto the rock and goes back down. Okay, I think I'm through with the water right now. Being acrylic, they'll dry enough so I can go back and work on the rocks and the water if I want to today. But I need to plan the other side of this painting. I'm changing it to a larger palette knife now. I have my colors mixed up. I hope I have enough. I'm going to slide this down here and make this a little bit closer to me so I can paint it, the tree. Okay. At this point, I'm going to lie it down this way, or lay it down this way so I can reach it. Let's try to stay out of camera range. Then I'm going to tilt this where you'll be able to see what I'm doing. Then we'll change it back. Okay. A tree can be many different shades of many different browns or grays. So we're going to put a lot of different colors in this tree. What kind of tree? I don't know. I think probably even a dead tree would fit right in here with broken limbs, a hollow in it. I'm not sure, but we need something pretty dramatic and something different over here. And I could go in the background and finish this, but I don't know what to do with it until I get the tree outlined at least. Now what we want to do is start it somewhere where it looks kind of blank. I'm going to use a dark color for the dark side, and that will be on my right side, with the light shining from the left. Then we're going to go up, we want to go at least into the trees and partially into the sky. It could go off the canvas, but let's just see how it looks as we start it. And I can make the tree larger, I think I will. But I have a tendency to grow things too fast. And so I'm going to take it a little bit easier until I get this established. Now we know a trunk doesn't just go straight up. It'll split off into limbs. In different directions. Just trying to lay it out here to get the idea. And we can make a fork right in here with this tree. Using the shadow so we can see it better. Oh, this could be a oak tree or any kind of a tree. In most trees, the limbs will reach straight up at an angle from the tree, and as you come down, they seem to kind of reach down towards the bottom of the tree at angles. Picked up a light color, didn't mean to. Okay. See, I'm just kind of touching the canvas and dragging it just slightly. That's the phone that goes to my fax, just please ignore it. I'm going to bring this out over this rock. The rock's getting too much attention. So we're going to put him back in his place. We're going to put a limb over here. If I struggle too much with the palette knife on these limbs, I'll come back with a brush, but I fully intend to use the palette knife all the way through. And with enough patience, it can be done. I like a nondescript, loose painting. If you're not stuck with it, you can change it, you can interpret it different ways and different people. So we do have to make sense with it. But, okay, now here's the light side of the tree. Since we're not going to have leaves, this is going to be a dead tree. I think it'd be more interesting to leave it dead. Then the light from the left side will capture just about this all the way up and down the tree here on this side, because the limbs and leaves are not going to be casting a shadow on it. And I could turn this to mostly a kind of like a white birch tree because of the strokes I'm using, but I still haven't made up my decision what needs to be in here. And we're going to go slimmer in here and go up and hit this limb a little bit here. And also in here. When the highlight hits a tree, it's not going to be a solid highlight because there's nooks and crannies and bark and twigs that will change the light. So if you see something you see through there, it's perfectly okay. And this limb I'm going to put right in front of that tree. Also, since it's a dead tree, it's not going to have very many twigs or small limbs. When you're working with texture in the background, it will kind of try to control the palette knife. So you have to kind of refigure how you're going to do this. Sometimes it even turns out better. When this gets dry, I'll go back and put more detail in it. Now let's look at this as we have it right now. It's easier to add more than it is to take off. My point would be that I've got to decide if I have some kind of wild animal down here to get a drink of water, is that what he's doing, or is he up in the tree? If I have him to be up on a tree limb, the tree limb would have to be heavier, the tree would have to be larger. So I think with this one, I'm going to put something along in this area right here. So I'm going to leave all this space to get him drawn in here. And standing on this rock, maybe jumping over to the rock. And I'm still thinking about the bobtail cat, but I'm not sure if that's a one. I may put a couple of raccoons out here. And that will probably be a lesson of its own, because all this will need to be dry before I kind of start putting that detail in here. You see where this is going? This is just a simple tree. It's lost its leaves. Down to the age probably that it just couldn't survive. Draw a little limb off of that. You do limbs, you need one limb crossing over another, some of them, unless they've just all gotten so old and broken off. But they're not all going to be standing alone. So we're going to take this one across over here. Enough for me, that's enough for a beginning. I'll probably come back and make the tree a little bit larger. Still going to be a dead tree. Then I've got to put more definition and shape into that big boulder back there. And work with the background now around behind that tree. So, one thing we have here is the bank of this inlet from the lake. And we need to establish where the bank is. This bank goes down into the water. There's no washed out area. It's just kind of like the sand is flat in here and very little grass is growing. But back over here, this looks like this has been eroded. I think it'd be much more interesting to come in here and put a sharper bank in here, at least to about along here. So that's how we determine what we're going to do, just by seeing what we think will look best. And I need more of a brown color than a gray color back there, so that's what I'm going to do right now. Looks like just a little bit more brown color. And what I'll do right in here, take that back, it's going to just dry, put some water right back in here, and have it crashing right in there to the edge. This is our ledge, and it's not sloping like this. So we need to give it a little bit of character here and there. The light may be hitting it. And they go in as part of that, not as a part of the rock. Now for that to make sense, I want to go ahead and add just a little bit of crashing wave that's crashing up into the guts of the bank, the side of the bank. And you could have some of that big pebbles and rocks out there if you want to. The edge of the rock needs to be established now again, to put in front of everything. And as we said, if we don't like some of these rocks, we can change them later. Okay, so I'm going to be working with the textures of the dirt and put some grass back over here with a palette knife. I'm trying to get this down to where it is basically doing the focal interest of the painting would be the wild animal, which maybe raccoons. I'm kind of thinking more about that. I think it'd be real cute, well received in this kind of nice, calm setting. I think people would like to see that. I did a painting for a school class, a demo right in front of them, and I was going to do an old schoolhouse, which I'd seen on the way up there, and I didn't have any idea what I was going to paint until I got there. I thought about that old schoolhouse, so I started painting it. You wonder what I'm doing? I'm mixing some more brown. I got there and I said, I'm thinking about painting that schoolhouse back there that just passed by. So they liked the idea. So I started painting the schoolhouse, and I asked them what else could I put in the painting. I wanted to draw them into the process. And somebody said, put in an outhouse. And I said, well, we can do that. So we kind of discussed it, how we were going to do it, and I put an outhouse behind the school. And then we had almost finished by the end of the class. We had like 2 or 3 classes coming in. So somebody said, I said, what else? Does anybody else have an idea what we could do to this painting? And somebody said, coon dog chasing raccoons up a tree. Well, I knew there'd be a lot more time, but I didn't have the time, plus at that time, several years ago, I wasn't good at drawing something I wasn't looking at. So I said, well, how about just some pictures? I could do a picture of some raccoons, but I don't have any pictures to look at. I thought that would get me off the hook, and I'd be able to just go home and say that I've taught them a little bit. teacher says, "Oh, I've got a book here. We can probably find a picture of some raccoons." So she came up with a picture, the cutest picture of 3 raccoons playing around a tree. And the kids in the class got a kick out of it. And it was real cute. And then I was going to put a flying bird over the top of it, of the schoolhouse, the old schoolhouse. And I started it when it was wet. And of course I was painting in oils at the time. And so somebody said, I said, "I'm through with it." And somebody said, "What kind of bird is that?" And I didn't want to finish it. I was through. I was ready to go home. And I said, "What kind of bird do you think it looks like?" And somebody says, "It's an owl, and that's the name of our team, our school mascot." And I thought, oh, how neat. I didn't do anything else to it because I had painted into wet paint over the schoolhouse. He was almost transparent. It looked like he was flying so fast that his wings were out of focus. I left it like that. I don't know who has that painting right now. I don't remember if I've sold it or what's happened to it. That was back in the 80s. And right here what I'm doing is coming forward with larger shapes of ground color and different light colors to just lighten up the whole picture here and just make it look a lot prettier. And we'll use some of it for the shadow because we know that the ground is not perfectly flat. It's going to have hollows and holes and hills in it. So we'll put a little bit less detail in the back and a little bit darker colors. So that we can make this look like a full, complete painting. But the colors do need to get more vibrant as they come down. You'll see that. I'm using kind of like a zigzag Z pattern as I come down. That gives you a feeling that the land is in different shapes. It's coming down, it's going up. It's not exactly flat. You wouldn't want to just make it perfectly flat. It would be boring. I know one thing, I will come back and paint this tree where it stands out more. I may use even black and white. The color's not so important as it is to stand out and to show us a tree. And right now it's kind of getting lost in all the colors in the background. But that's what happens when it gets dry. Then I put more contrast in the tree. I'm going from a mixture of yellows and gold and kind of a brassy gold for the ground, alternating it so it won't all be the same color. I'm just going to go over that lamb because I can come back and make it look better. I think we already like it better. And what grass I put in here is going to be sparse, but it's going to be done with a palette knife and a little differently, maybe differently than what you've seen it before, but it's just the way I paint it. Not done. So here we need a prettier color. I've been told I have a southern accent, so I suppose I should not have to apologize for it, but I've been in Texas all my life, and I think that is a little bit south. Proud to be a Texas. I love it down here. I'm in my hometown. I moved back here almost 2 years ago, and seeing old friends and remembering friends that don't live here anymore. Making new friends. Okay, that's better. It's too white, so we'll just kind of scrape that off and put a new color right on top of it. See there, anything you can do, anything with paint. I don't know where that purple spot came from the other day. It's about to change. Doesn't fit in this painting at all. We're just putting some red highlights, warm highlights in there. See how I'm just kind of introducing different colors along the way. I'm going to go ahead and put a shadow beside this tree so it'll stand up better. And the shadow is not gray. I used to paint, when I was very young, I painted everything with a gray shadow because I thought shadows were gray. And I was told, look at the color. If it's green grass, it'll be dark green and a shadow. I don't know why I couldn't see that. Just thought I'd pass that on. Make me a little bit more of a shadow color here with the brown for the tree. Which would be on this side of it, and kind of shine it a little bit towards the back because the sun is not setting here, it's setting back by my left shoulder. So we're just going to call this a shadow, a shade from the tree. And it's not really solid, so we'll kind of do it a little skimpy. And then it fades out. When you put a shadow down, remember that the shadow will be darker next to the object. This is about to be now. And as the light filters in, then the shadow is not as dark. So we'll take some of this off. Move it around a little bit till we still have it. And make the edges a little bit less prominent, because that's where the light filters in from the side also. A shadow is not a solid object. Too much light colors will go back through and reestablish where the shade is. We'll do the limbs later in the shade. Whenever this gets dry, we'll do a lot more detail right over here. Right now I'm very disappointed in the color of that rock. So I told you everything is darker when it gets dry. So here once again I'm changing the color. Doesn't matter if you have layers and layers of paint on your painting. It's better than not having enough paint. A wise artist said one time he saw that artists do not use enough paint on their canvas, and it wasn't interesting. I tend to agree with it. Get rid of that dark purple look. Where did that come from anyway? Okay, let's hit this with a lighter color. You're in there. I like to work until I just get tired of what I'm doing. As long as I can find something to do, I'll paint. But I think I'm just about to run out of ideas today on all these rocks. I think I'll let them get dry and come back later. Either later today or tomorrow morning. This is Friday afternoon. Saturdays I'm here nearly all day. Thank you for taking some time with my art. Hopefully you've learned a little bit. Have a good afternoon and a good weekend.